Hello, everybody, and welcome to the podcast, You Are the Medicine, where we explore yours, mine, ours, our own innate ability to heal ourselves because the medicine is really within. So I'm your host, Dr. Jessica Chichester at Haute Healing Oasis right now, which is my wellness center in Stamford, Connecticut. And I am here with a dear sister of mine, Georgia.
Hello.
Georgia.
Good day, everybody.
Yay, thanks for coming.
It is such a pleasure to be here, Jessica. Thank you for inviting me.
Yes, thanks for coming. So Georgia, who are you? Like if anybody was just gonna first meet you, I mean, obviously you don't look like the typical standard woman around here, which is why I really get along with you, not just for that, but it's a snapshot of like the essence that's inside. So if somebody were to meet you or see you, like how would you summarize Georgia in a nutshell?
Well, I consider myself a medicine woman. So not only do I steward earth medicines and ceremony, but I really live my life with the intention of living in right relation with the natural world, living in right relation to others. And yeah, my life is devoted to the healing path for myself, but also to humanity, to the world. And I consider myself very, very blessed to kind of receive a lot of grace, a lot of breaks in my life that have led me to where I can really live a life of service and steward this type of consciousness.
So tell me about your life, like, you know, where you lived, where you've grown up, like where you are now, and I think that'd be really interesting for everybody to hear.
Yeah, it's so funny. Like a lot of people that I've met in recent years are kind of can be a little surprised when I tell them about my background, because I've spent the last 4 years living mostly south of the border in Mexico, in Costa Rica, and Peru. But before that, my life was super different. So I was born in New York City. I lived there until I was 13 in Brooklyn. Then we moved up to Fairfield County, Connecticut, not so far from here in Wilton. And I went to undergrad at Yale University in New Haven, so stayed in the area. After college, I moved to New York and I worked in investment banking, and I really kind of followed the crowd. This is what a lot of people from my university, a lot of people were going into finance, and frankly, like I never asked myself like what I was really curious about. I was really chasing that, the esteem, I was chasing the validation, and was really looking at the outside world to kind of tell me who I was for a really long time. So through my mid-20s, I was working in corporate. I moved out to San Francisco and worked at a tech company, and was doing really well by the world's standards, but something just felt off inside of me. Like I never felt, I always felt like there was something wrong. Like I think looking back on it, there were definitely like depressive symptoms, but I was really good at hiding it and just making being fun. I would party a lot, drank a lot of alcohol back then. When I was in San Francisco, I started to I knew things weren't working, so I got really into yoga, started meditating, became a yoga teacher, and then kind of once I started actually devoting energy to my own healing, and my vibration started rising, and I started reconnecting to my intuition because I wasn't numbing myself out so much. Then it was like cosmic breadcrumb after cosmic breadcrumb, and life started, life started bringing me people, guides, allies, brothers and sisters of the path to really support me and be mentors and friends along the way. And I've spent the past 4 years so invested in the expansion of my consciousness, my healing, and it has been absolutely miraculous just with my inner world and with my spiritual gifts because I never set out for the goal of, you know, understanding the way the universe works. I just thought there was something wrong with me. And then as I really started like looking in the mirror and doing that inner work, it was like I started to understand. It was like I started to understand life differently. And that can be it sounds kind of vague, but it's like when we do rise in consciousness, we can understand a little bit more how the universe works, right? And we're not at the mercy of our circumstances. We can be creators of our lives. So it's been really, really incredible. And that kind of gives you some background without getting so far into my like medicine path in particular.
Well, we'll get to that in a little bit. But was it when you were having this awakening, right? I mean, that's a huge shift. I have to first say, like, you literally catapulted your way out of the standard Western lifestyle, right? I mean,
Absolutely.
And probably like the expectations of your family and all their own hopes and dreams for you to maybe follow a carbon copy of life. Like, did you experience that from your parents? Was there resistance when you started awakening and coming into this path that you're on now?
You know, I think our parents always want what's best for us. I'm really lucky, especially at this point in my journey. My parents are so supportive. They sit in ceremony with me. They really believe in the work that I'm doing, and I think that's because they've seen me change.
Wow.
And they feel what it's like to be around me, and they look at me as a guide. You know, they love me. I'm still their daughter, but they can see the impact of the work that I've done in my own life and people around me, and they're really supportive of it. I will say at first, you know, to get to a place now where I'm holding space for people and in very vulnerable, sensitive spaces because I work with plant medicine, it wasn't like, I didn't start out with this level of embodiment where I could hold that space. And there was a lot of soul searching. There was a lot of sometimes unraveling of that superficial identity in order to rebuild from a more authentic, spirit-driven place. So I think there were moments that I wasn't as, I think embodied in the work that I'm doing as I am now. But my parents always really believed in me, and frankly, I've always been a really independent person, so I've never had to, I've always really been able to support and provide for myself, and they trust me. They trust me. I have a good track record with that.
Well, that's good.
Yeah,
That's beautiful.
Such a blessing.
Yeah,
It's such a blessing.
It is a blessing. I mean, I just think, of course it was like probably hard to get embodied too, because when we're in our 20s, right? A lot of this was in the 20s.
Yeah.
I always say that like we're a different person at the beginning of our 20s, then our mid, then our end.
Yeah.
Right? And then even just as people, our brain, like as women, our brain doesn't stop developing till I think it's 25. You know, so there's all of that included. So it's interesting to just think about from the standpoint that I come from also is just what's happening hormonally, physiologically, collectively within our own body and the psyche of our body to help move us into our path and our purpose. And I love like hearing that part of your story, because even in the midst of all of that 3D Western finance Yale University world, you still felt like you could still listen and felt like, and that's what I'm hearing, it's like you were still able to tune in and saying like something's off, like there's this bit of depressive symptoms, you know, and I love how you said that, because then it shows the non-attachment even to depression, right? It's like there's symptoms of this, like there's symptoms of like something missing. What is it? And I think that's where that signal of you are the medicine comes in, because it's being able to see where you are, but also operate on a lot of different planes all at once, and have the tools to tune in and to, use your GPS navigation system to get you where you want to be.
Totally. And sometimes, like, I'll even tell people, like, if they're like, how do I tune into that intuition? It's literally like building the muscle, and it doesn't have to be like the big life decisions where you're tuning into your intuition for the first time, because it is like, if you ignore your intuition for so long, that muscle does kind of atrophy. So it's like rebuilding it. Like when someone asks you, what do you want to eat for dinner? You can actually tune in and say, like, what does my body want? What is my body craving? And that's a pretty low stakes decision. But if you start tuning into it, you will develop that relationship to your body that will serve you so well when it comes to the big decisions. Yeah.
I love that, tuning into the little things. And I think about like so many women and men that just like,
they're like you choose.
Yeah, so that's even what happened with my husband this morning. I'm like, you want to lift weights or you want to take a walk? And he was like, whatever. He asked me. Yeah. And I was like, no. I don't care. It's a beautiful day either way.
Yeah.
You choose. And it was just like, the power of choice and like the freedom that we can give ourselves to choose by tuning in is really important. I can even equate it with like athleticism, because in our culture, athleticism as a base, but our culture is so used to, this is the structure in which we should follow. Like you wake up, you brush your teeth, you get ready, you go to work, you go, blah, 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 blah. And now all of a sudden, if in the middle of that everyday cycle, we can choose again, quiet and choose, then even the process of getting to A to B is so much different.
You're so right. And I think this is kind of one of the like illnesses, is just living on autopilot, when we just give away the power of our choices because we just do the same things every day. We hang out with the same people, we go to the same, or when I say we, I'm just saying people out there, they go to the same bars, and it's just like you give away the power of choice. And our choices are everything. Our choices, like our yeses and our nos, and reclaiming that. Reclaiming the power of our choices is such medicine.
That is so good, because I even think about like by the time we're 30, like between 30 and 32, 95% of our choices, they're not choices, 95% of our habits are on this subconscious loop. So we're doing everything the same. Even brushing your teeth, like I like to switch my hands up and balance, and sometimes I challenge myself to like fold laundry or something while I'm brushing my teeth. I mean, a lot of things I do while I'm doing that. But like in general, the power of like when we're in a moment, being able to be aware of it and choosing it differently is really potent.
It's so potent. It's a big step of the awakening process, realizing that you're a creator and you're not just going through the motions, right? But actually creating your reality, and also taking the time to pause and be present, right? And just enjoy, I was sitting here just admiring this beautiful room before this conversation started. And it really reminds me, like, if we're always just in repetition mode, we can miss like the little delights and treasures of being human, the little ways that the divine winks at us.
Yeah, and it's like so often, right, in this Western culture, we're tapped into our cell phones and something, and then
so
because
true.
of that, we're missing this and all those little details that create the environment and the energy that we're in. And I thought about it the other day, that the word cell is also like a jail cell, right? So now this cell phone, it's holding you captive.
Wow.
It was like a big realization
it's word
for
magic.
me. It's word magic. So even making those, so what I want to circle back to is what you were saying before, like being able to be aware, right? And that's what you were saying, and to be able to make choices and choose again. So with that, okay, you moved from New York to San Francisco, you're in this job, you're doing yoga, one after another, these doors, these people are opening. And at what point or like the leading up to the climax, did something about moving to South America happen? Like, where was that trigger?
Yeah, honestly, it was just, like God was totally at the wheel with this one, because I was living in San Francisco. I'd gotten a promotion, I bought a car, and I was living in this really nice apartment with roommates, and they wanted to move out. They were a little bit older than I was. And I was like, you know what, I'm gonna get my own place. Let me put my stuff in storage and go down to Costa Rica for a month, because I was working remotely. I was like, I'll go down to Costa Rica for a month, and then I'll come back and I'll get myself a 1-bedroom in San Francisco, which was an upgrade, from having 2 roommates. And I go to Costa Rica. Mind you, around this time, I was like super burnt out at work. I was going through a breakup, was having some family stuff. Moving is so stressful. And I get down to Costa Rica, and I'm just like burnt out. And just day by day, I started to come back to life. I spent every morning, I would wake up, I would meditate. By this time, I was already a yoga teacher. I would wake up, I would meditate, I would go surfing. I didn't even really know how to surf, so I would just, for the first weeks, I would just wipe out over and over again until I finally broke through, and then I was like catching waves. And then I'd eat a papaya, I'd go home, I'd do yoga, because it was a few hours ahead of San Francisco, and then I would work like an 10-hour day, and then I'd go to sleep and repeat. And even while I was working, just being in the jungle, being by the ocean, having the fresh fruit, being in the sun, the minerals from the water, it was like I started to feel changes. Even though I'd been meditating for over a year, almost 2 years at that point, I'd been practicing a lot of yoga, but actually being down there in the sun. And then I started, so that 1 month turned into 3 months. I was still working remotely, but I started traveling around Costa Rica. I started meeting other people who were healers and doing it full, who were just really going for it. And I decided on that trip, I was like, I'm done. Like, I'd always dreamed of like, I'm gonna quit my job someday and travel and take time off and travel. I'm like, I don't wanna take time off. Like, I don't wanna be living this life, because I was down there and I had this moment. I was like, I've just totally bought into like the greatest scam of all time, because if you work, if you have a good job, if you make the money, then you'll be happy or you'll be worth something. And then I went down there and there was really modest people living. I'd see them in the ocean every day on our surfboards, and they were so happy. And they didn't have that much, right? But they were in the ocean, they were one with nature, they're their friends. And I was like, that's it, I'm done. And I went back to San Francisco, I gave away all my possessions, drove my car to Connecticut, gave it to my mom, quit my job, and I've been exploring ever since. But the exploration isn't just like the outside world, it's the inside world. That's what I say. I'm like, I've been in some cool situations, but the most exotic is the inner world. It's like, it's like a mine that never ends. So that's kind of like how I ended up going from corporate to traveling.
So, right, you're in Costa Rica, and then what happens?
Yeah, so I go back to Costa Rica. I lived in a community for a while, and this was a big part of my medicine path, starting to sit in ceremony, starting to live in community,
and
attending
workshops. And how did you find these people?
So
if it's too much,
very synchronistic.
Okay,
like
yeah.
So I traveled in Mexico for a little while, and I was in it's like someone tells you to go to one place, and you go to one place, and you meet someone else who tells you to go to, so it was like literally breadcrumbs like that, and I ended up at this place in Costa Rica, ended up living there, working on their farm. I was really like in soul-searching mode, where I was like letting myself be that free-spirited, like young person working on farms. I taught yoga on an island in Panama. Like, I did all sorts of different things. Like, this was like more like 2021, and really gave myself permission to do that exploration without saying like, okay, I need to have like my own business by this day, because I know that can just be like the same kind of energy of the conditioning, just with like feathers, right? If I'm like, you're gonna have a spiritual business and make this and this and this, it's literally just the same condition, but with like a spiritual hat, exactly, with a different costume. So I really gave myself space to like be in that, and then once the inspiration hit, then I started to create more consciously, like in service.
So then, what does that look like? What is that? Where has that led you?
Yeah. So I started like when I really started building my business, I was working a lot with women and men, mostly women one-on-one, doing like spiritual life coaching, helping people really like be the leaders of their own lives, reclaim their decision making, improve their relationship to themselves, which changes all of your relationships and all your prospects really in life when you believe in yourself, when you love yourself, when you're living in right relation to who you are. And I was working with plant medicine has been such an integral part of my journey, from even back when I lived in San Francisco, when I started like working with mushrooms, not really in a ceremonial environment, but in a conscious environment. And I was, oh my goodness, like experiencing so much personal healing of my spirit. And my friends would kind of be like, they would joke and they would call me like a shaman, because I could really guide people and hold people through like these powerful experiences. And I wasn't, I don't call myself a shaman now, but it was like, I had a connection. I had a connection to the plants. I had a connection to the consciousness. And so I was working with the plants, and then continued my study in ceremony with different leaders, and I felt the calling super strong. And as much as I love working with people one-on-one and sharing like and guiding them to their own intuition and to their own medicine.
Yeah, I was gonna say sharing your medicine.
Yeah, sharing my medicine and helping them access their own medicine. Mm-hmm. Because honestly, I was talking to a sister yesterday, and she was telling, like, she's a sister that supports me in some ceremonies. She's gonna come support a retreat that I'm doing next year in Peru. And she was saying that like the activation is in like giving yourself permission to be the woman that you're destined to be, that your heart knows that you can be. And I've really given that to myself. And I will say it's not always easy. Like I confront self-doubt sometimes. I confront insecurities, but being like, no, I know that something is calling me. That's not my ego. It's not, it's something is calling me forward. And that was really when I stepped into my gifts as a ceremonialist. And the first ceremony I ever held, of course, I'm scared out of my mind because you don't really know what's going to happen. And I prayed so much. I had sat in ceremony and I got the message super clear. Like, this isn't you. This is spirit in the driver's seat. You're in the passenger seat. And I was like, okay, we're doing this. And it was like lifetimes of experience came online. And, I grew up in Connecticut and New York, and I was an investment banker. But people who come to my spaces, they don't even know this about me. They come up to me after and they're like, you are living your purpose. Oh my gosh, like you are a medicine woman. Mm-hmm. And it's like, not needing them to tell me that, but to have that reflected where it's like, mm-hmm. That intuition that's guiding you on the path, it's not just a hunch. Like that is literally your higher self, your ancestors, the earth, your relationship to a higher power communicating with you. And then it's like when we step into it, it's not like you're doing something for the first time. It's like you're doing what you have been destined to do. Yeah. So that's been my experience really with serving medicine, and wow, it's just blossomed open like a flower. It's like I had held a ceremony like a week and a half ago, and I was just like, I didn't believe, like it's such a paradigm shift to be like, oh, I can do what I absolutely love as my career, right? Like receive prosperity for it. And it's helping people heal. Like people are having awakenings. People are like accepting themselves. They're forgiving. Their bodies are changing. And it's such a blessing. I'm like, I can't believe I get to do this. And it's my favorite thing to do. It brings me so much joy. And it's such a paradigm shift because I never thought that would even be possible. And I never would have known had I not taken those risks and had I not taken those chances. And I will say, when it comes to like serving medicine, that's really serious. That's a contract between you and Great Spirit, you and the medicine, and requires a lot of self-honesty, a lot of study, and it's not a path for everyone to receive, and certainly not a path for everyone to serve medicine, right? So that's more nuanced, but it's like that, like wow, I never even like dreamed that it could be so rewarding to like be in service. You know, it's so fun. I love it.
Yeah, I do too. I love that
Right?
you love it. I
Yeah.
love it too. I don't understand life without it. We are,
Yeah.
and something actually happened a couple months ago where I just heard the message from God, like, you're in service to me and you're of service to others. Just being that direct channel, right? So what I'm hearing from you and your meditation and
love
all of this
that.
and creating this container inside is I have to say it's the most important thing that we can do. I always say it's even more important than my marriage. It's more important than my kids, anything. Is my direct connection to God, to source energy. I need to take that time to be still and listen because this channel that we are, I actually what came up the other day was this. It's like we're a flute, we're an instrument, and we have a windpipe. And when we do our own cleansing and connecting to, however you want to put it, I just wanted to say Christ consciousness, like this cleansing and this connecting to Christ universal, the great spirit consciousness, and to open ourselves and to live a life in alignment with this, then that path on the inside, then that open portal, right? Then we can play music in our life. Then the flute of who we are can sound. And the people that have the twinge in their ear can hear, and we can help them navigate their own windpipe by just sharing and embodying ours.
So true.
Right?
Totally. The purification of the body, cleansing the channel.
Yeah, the body, the mind, the spirit,
body, mind,
the
and
psyche.
spirit.
You know, even in Kundalini yoga, they say that there's 10 bodies. You know, when we have all these different fields around us that is really important for us to connect to, and you just sharing how you are connected and how you stay connected and what that looks like. And I love hearing your path because at first, sometimes going down a healing journey, it always seems like it's just for us. You know, I'm gonna heal myself, and so on the outside, this is where the old paradigm goes dead. Because on the outside, the old paradigm says, oh, you're a woman, oh, you're focused on yourself, oh, you're selfish. Right? That's what our culture says, you're selfish. But when we take a moment to stop operating like a machine gun and to pause and be still and to take aligned action and function like a slingshot, you know, then we not only help to heal ourselves, but again, help to give that healing to other people, right? To help release them, even if they just witness it. It's releasing something in them.
100%. It's like the love that we give to ourselves, like, affects every single person around us, and probably far beyond that we will never even see. You know, and I think when we do the healing work and the inner work to really understand, okay, why am I living in separation, right? Why am I comparing myself to this woman? Or why am I judging her or bitter? And instead of like avoiding those uncomfortable topics in ourselves, but actually meeting them with compassion and saying, okay, you know, I've been comparing myself because of this reason or because of this memory from my childhood, and healing that. What we're doing is we're releasing that in ourselves, and we can just rise into love, right? Not through just like spiritual bypassing, but actually integrating those shadows, integrating the uncomfortable things, giving ourselves grace, because we're all human. But the truth is that as you integrate, you do rise in consciousness. And as you rise in consciousness, you realize, oh, yeah, we are all interconnected. We are all interconnected. And by taking care of myself, I'm taking care of someone, even in a more cosmic way than I can understand. You know, and as we continue to rise, we end up feeling greater compassion, like approaching that Christ consciousness, right? Which is unconditional love. And living in that place of service, not because, oh, I want people to think that I want people to admire me, or I want, validation, right? No, but it's just like it pours out because you've you filled up that love on the inside, you filled up that cup of love, and then it can overflow. And it feels so good to be in that. But it is definitely like nuance, because I think a lot of people do give, but not exactly from that full place. And there's an energetic difference.
So do you ever feel like, coming home to see your family, right? Totally different world than Mexico, Peru, Costa Rica, right? Do you ever feel like when you're here that, or even when you're away, that just the old world pull of I need to come back, or something of that nature? Is it? Yeah.
No, I've never considered like getting another corporate. There have been moments where I'm like, oh, well, maybe I should have a conversation with this person who's, an investor, like a switched on, tapped in investor. Maybe I can collaborate with him on something and bring my gifts into his world. But I've never looked back, and I choose to believe every single day, and I feel it in my body that this is my path, and it feels amazing. It's not without challenges, because a lot of the things that when I look at my former paradigm that I lived in, and I think a lot of people can relate to this, it's like you trade a lot for security, right? Like you trade your time, your energy, and that's really what you get for working a 9-to-5 job, for going into corporate. Yeah, depending on what you're doing, maybe you're also getting like some social value, recognition, things like that. But really, it's like you trade your days, and in return you get security. Now, the truth is that everything material can never actually provide you true security, because it can always be taken away. You can get fired, right? If like your marriage is giving you security, like people get divorced, like things like that, so it's like you're not really actually getting security at all. But from a financial place, like you are getting some level of security. So, to go out and to decide to be an entrepreneur, or to be like to work for yourself in service to humanity, then I think it's super badass. It's super badass because you're saying like, yeah, I trust God, I trust me, and I know in the paradigm that I'm creating in the world and that I'm creating in my own life, that I do get to live a rich life, not just rich with money, but rich in experiences and people, in consciousness and intimacy, right? Like really connecting with people, like that's richness, right? And we also get to like go to travel and get to feel beautiful. It's not a trade-off, but it definitely tests me. It's tested me in moments, and but it's totally worth it. I've never thought about going back.
So was there one experience in particular with plant medicine that just sent you to the next level of your healing?
So I tell this story in ceremony sometimes, and this wasn't the experience that was the most psychedelic or that was the most like shifting my vibration, but it was one of the first ceremonies I ever sat in. I sat in a peyote ceremony in Costa Rica, the community, and this altar was a big part of their practice in the community. And they practiced the Native American church altar of the half moon. And you sit in a circle, upright. You don't have a chair. You're not allowed to lie. I mean, no one's going to like yell at you if you lie down, but you're sitting in a circle around a fire all night. So it's like 8 p.m. to 8 a.m. You're sitting there around the fire. So it's not necessarily the most comfortable. And they pass around instruments, a rattle and a drum, and people sing prayer songs. And a lot of the prayer songs are like in Nahuatl, which is the Native American language. Some of them are in Spanish, and these are like prayer songs. And it's going on for 12 hours, and this is my first time. And this particular medicine, it's massin, it's pretty heavy, and it takes a while for you to kind of feel it. And I was like, what am I going to feel? What breakthroughs am I going to have? What am I going to remember? What gifts are going to come online? Like, I was so curious. And I'm just sitting there like, when am I going to feel it? Like, meditating, do I see visuals? And I finally broke through. And when I broke through, it was like I looked around at me and I realized, wow, this isn't about me at all. This is about being here, being a part of something, seeing people pray, people bringing themselves to the fire, to the altar, and saying like, purify me, like willing to look at parts of themselves, right? Putting the tobacco in the fire, praying for the earth, and this completely changed my life, right? Because I'd never been in a situation where I saw people praying like this, and they weren't on like their knees and hands like praying to God in this way, but like speaking to life, their visions for humanity, right? Speaking to like their love of the planet and like their deep cry for us to improve the way we connect to the planet, to the water, to the earth. And it completely cracked me open. And I will say, it was my first time in this lifetime being in an experience like this, and it was so familiar, and I've been sitting ever since. So that was, wow. It wasn't even like the medicine really like, I wasn't like flying on the medicine or like super strong in the force, but it was like being in the ceremony. It was like the ceremony was the medicine.
Yes.
And now I lead, I hold ceremonies, and I hold ceremonies with mushroom medicine around a fire. And there's a lot of Native American influence in that ceremony. And it's really beautiful. People love it, and we play the guitars, and it's like I'm like, the circle is the medicine, the fire is the medicine, the ceremony is the medicine, right? Because it's so healing, connecting to the spirit of prayer, connecting to the spirit of unity, and then the medicine is like an ally and assists you in that. But there are, of course, other medicines where it's not about a ceremony, it's about you just being with the medicine. And I don't think one way is necessarily right, or one way is wrong, or one way is better than the other. It depends on the medicine, it depends on the medicine carrier. But for me, like, ceremony is my life way. I love it.
Me too.
Right? It's amazing.
I love it too.
I do.
Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, it reminds me of a bunch of different ceremonies, with this tribe that we go to in Ecuador. And even I just remember the first time we sat for our opening ceremony at Chanupa, or Mapacho tobacco ceremony. And it was serious.
Yeah.
It was like this really serious, heartfelt cry out to God, right? To the Great Spirit, with intention and love, and to the earth and to each other. And it was intense. I remember getting up and almost feeling like I was sticky. Like almost like, was I sticky, or was this sticky layer coming off? And as the week was going on, then we went and, ate dinner and celebrated, and it was like, boy, we could switch. Right? And it doesn't even have to be ceremony. Sometimes this is not even that serious, right? There's serious parts and there's play in it, and just allowing that in. Even like they allow their children to be in ceremony, right? The children and the dogs, and they just always, that energy invites that lightness and that play in.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've had some dogs in ceremony. So I was like, bring them. They're like spirit guides. They help move the energy.
They do.
Yeah.
And it's amazing to just have played with that paradigm, because, growing up the daughter of a Marine, Hall of Fame athlete, regimented, all check the boxes. Like, I always loved spirit, but like when I prayed and grew up in a Pentecostal church, it was like always just serious, right? And these serious cries to God. So to be in ceremony and to have all of that invited in, right? And knowing that God is going to just blanket this whole thing, was really profound. It was, to see the transformation in other people's life is the gift. And it is definitely part of the medicine. So what I like to say with our retreats is, like, well, we have a Zoom call before we go away, and say, look, everybody here has decided to say yes. Like, even right now, right, we both decided to say yes. We're in communion with each other. So obviously there's some medicine, there's some healing that wants to and needs to be exchanged. So it's like, if there was, going back to what you had said, those secondary lying emotions like jealousy and greed, or separation, right? I'm not enough. All these things that come in to separate us from each other. If they came in, if we allowed them to come in instead of working on our own to give them love and to release them, then if we allow them to come in, then we're gonna miss out on this medicine, this holy moment that we're having, and that life is these little holy moments.
Following the yes. I love that you said that, like, that we both like said yes to be here. And that reminds me of this like really like little nugget that my friend shared with me, I think last week, because I was approached for a collaboration by these people, and it felt like, I was like, honestly, I feel like I'm supposed to be there. And my friend, she's super tapped in, very gifted psychic, supports a lot of people. And I was like, hey, you know, like, oh, by the way, like my friends these people approached me, and I feel like I got to be there, and I just want to kind of make sure they pass your sniff test, basically. And she's like, oh, I don't know them. But if it's a yes in your body, then you're meant to be there. And if they're out of integrity, then you're still meant to be there. And that's why you're going, right? To help transmute that space. And I mean, I totally trust these people, but it's like, it made me realize, like, like if my body's saying like, you gotta be there, I gotta trust that, because there's gonna be medicine in this situation no matter what.
Exactly.
And be open that it might look different than how I'm hoping it goes, but there's gonna be medicine, and I'm meant to be there. And so just being available and just answering the call, because it's like it's like my intuition, it's my body, but it's also spirit and my higher self. So it's like really like honoring that yes, like come full circle back to the beginning of our conversation.
Yes. Yeah. And I love that you said that too, because like life, right? People think, okay, if I'm right, the Western standard is like usually a black or a white, right? So if I'm into meditation or in prayer and all of this, then I'm like cuckoo, floating somewhere. And it's not about floating somewhere. It's about it's about seeing everything as part of the navigation, as part of the medicine. So sometimes even I know growing up, I don't know if I've explained it properly, but growing up even as a Christian sometimes, right? It was, all right, if it's bad, then it's from the darkness. Like, no, this angel could be coming to wake you up, to like literally smack you awake, right? And just say like, wake up, this is your life. Like, wake up, this is a path to go, or wake up. Even if there's something that could be seemingly destructive in the moment, there's something there for you to learn. So it's not like it's always from the darkness, right? Our greatest teachers are often our children, right? They adolescents, they come in to push our buttons to see, hey, where are you unhealed? Like, wake up, mom. Like, wake up, dad, right?
Totally.
Challenge you to the next level.
It's the mirror. So that's why it's like being brave and like looking in the mirror and not being like, it's that like blaming or victimizing yourself, because then you're missing like the treasure trove of reflections that life is constantly giving to you. Yeah. You know what you're sharing? This is something that I think continues to be a part of my journey, is this like light and dark like conversation. Because some like, you know, spiritual people will be work a lot with dark energy, like in a like working with the dark feminine or doing a lot of shadow work, and there's a lot of spirit in that. And then there's other people in kind of like the spiritual, like New Age world that they talk a lot about like the dark being bad, and you know, it's so like, I personally believe, like, is there like a force that's like against humanity and freedom? Like, I think that there's always polar forces in the world, but the truth is that we have polarity within us too. You know, and so if we're rejecting the darkness out there constantly, not one, we're living in fear, and that's not a high vibration, but two, it's as we're actually rejecting that part of ourselves. And when we reject parts of ourselves, they don't go away. That's not how it works. What you're doing is you're not properly integrating them, so then they end up like creeping into your life in unconscious ways. as opposed to like understanding the darkness. you know?
Yes. I mean, even when we look at like, if we brought it back biblically, there was God and his angels, and Satan was one of his angels.
Yeah.
You know, it was his top angel of music, right? So we can I pin that for a second and think about like the vibrations that we hear out in this world
Yes.
too, and how it's really important to have discernment and to test
my
all
goodness.
things, right? That's part of what we're called to do too, is not just lovey-dovey, light and love and accept it all. It's to have discernment, and in order to have discernment, you have to be aware of and acknowledge all sides of it, and not even just say, okay, I'll never do that, right? Oh, I'll never. We'd hope that we wouldn't, right? But for us to judge somebody else who did, we don't know what that path is, right? And that could be a different story in and of itself. But to understand the polarities that even God, right, that created, and even that's here operating, that's why it's important, going back to it, is to be that clear channel to that light, and to say, okay, right, inner child stuff is coming in. Oh my, I just witnessed something bad, or like I just witnessed something that was horrible. Like, and I just heard something sad that happened to somebody, whatever it is. Instead of getting, emotions are important, but they're not first. Emotions come, but they don't come first, right? We make a decision to connect to that source, and to stay operating as a clear channel. And then when all of these situations arise, we can just use, again, that GPS navigation to bring us on home.
Yes, absolutely. I heard something the other day that was so helpful, where it's like your intuition speaks from a neutral place.
Yeah.
And I was like, I love that. It's like, if you need to make a decision, like giving yourself some space to like come into your body and be in that neutral playing ground.
Yeah.
Right?
Totally. And that's why I never had a desire to open up a business, ever. Neither did my husband. It was just like the infrared helped us on the infrared sauna helped us on so many levels, that it was like, I have to give this to people, right? Like I have to allow them to experience it, because what happened is I was so go, long story short, that when I was in what I call my holy box, it's just like, and even if you look at the science to prove it, right? Like the nervous system comes down, the dopamine, oxytocin, serotonin, endorphins release, and I saw the structure of my body. I felt my tissues, my joints, my mind unravel. So wherever it is, right? Like here at Haute Healing Oasis, or in the jungle, or in your backyard, or in your bed with your dog, right? Or while you're anywhere, driving in the car, it's really important, more than just driving in the car, but to find that moment really starts internally to come down.
Yeah.
Because that's how we blossom.
It is how we blossom, you know, and it's like just also trusting, because it's God's work, like extending the invitation, and like putting the life raft out to people, or putting a hand out to people, being like, hey, I'm here to listen to you, I'm here to see you, I'm here to invite you in. And like, it's like, yeah, we put out the call, but it's like, not everyone's going to answer the call. Not everyone is going to feel resonant. And I think that's part of like being in this work, is knowing that like you're going to express something at a vibration that some people are just, it's going to kind of, they're going to miss it.
Yeah.
Especially when you're working with like certain technologies that are really like working with the quantum. Some people aren't going to understand, right? The work that I do, like I'm sure there are people out there that are like, you know, this crazy lady. But then like knowing that it's like the people that are meant to be there are always there, and their lives are completely transformed, right? Like helping people heal their bodies. It's like, wow. And just, you know, knowing, like, because for me, I don't know how it's been for you, but for me, this has been a lot of my inner work, has been like daring to express myself, like daring to show up as myself, to like take that chance to to express my oracle, my wisdom, and like it's been edgy at times, and now it's like more integrated, but it can still feel edgy when I'm like going to that next level of who I am. And one thing that I tell myself, it's like, it's not like my medicine is for everybody, but it's not for everybody. And it's like also not judging the people that aren't going to receive the medicine, because they're also children of God that are just in a different place in their lives, or maybe at a different vibration, and like having compassion and love for them too. This is something that has really supported me, but it is like just being that flute, even if not everyone hears the music, the people who hear the music, it like changes their lives.
Yeah.
And it's really rewarding.
Georgia, you're incredible.
We could just talk forever.
You're incredible.
Thank you.
Yeah, so how can people find you? Tell everybody how they can find you.
Okay, so I'm on Instagram at Being Georgia. It's being.georgia. I also have a website. It's georgiab.com, B-E. So there you can learn about working with me, my upcoming ceremonies, some mentorship and retreat opportunities that I have coming soon. And you can always send me an email. Everything's on my website, or reach out to me on Instagram. I'd love to connect with you and share the medicine, and also help guide you to your medicine, because that's the strong stuff.
Yeah, that's the most potent.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. I don't know if you're still going to be here in September to
Yes.
maybe do ceremony
Yeah,
over here.
yep.
So I'll put everything in our bio, so you can see that George is going to be here at Haute Healing Oasis in the Center for Consciousness, the room that we're in right now, doing a healing ceremony in September. I can't remember the exact date at this moment. Yeah.
Mid-September.
Yeah, mid-September. So just check out all the information is going to be in our bio for Georgia as well. And then follow us on Instagram at Haute Healing Oasis. And thank you so much, Georgia, for sharing your medicine. Thank you, everybody, for listening in. And I hope that helps you navigate your own journey and sifting through the own medicine of your life and recalibrating maybe what seems like it was a challenging situation or something that maybe wasn't serving your highest good. I hope today's conversation helped to enlighten you to a different way of seeing it and to transmute that situation, that circumstance, into something that works for your highest good. So, aho, Satnam.
Satnam.
Thank
Blessings,
you,
family.
See you soon.